Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the June 12th, 2019 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. I'd ask that everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The record will reflect that Mr. Dumas, Mr. Furman, and Mr. Bishop are not present tonight, but otherwise all commissioners are present. Can we get an introduction of staff?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning Commission.
Lance Brock, Zoning Official, Ascension Parish.
Eric Poche, Senior Planner.
All right, and I will make a next item on the agenda is the chairman's comments, and I don't have any comments except to say that item number 13 on the agenda tonight, the public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats, Oak Lake subdivision major revision by Quality Engineering Survey and LLC. We got an email that was sent both to me and to Mr. Fournier this afternoon, or maybe even this morning, advising that that was going to be pulled from the agenda. Mr. St. Romain, you are here. That is correct. You're asking it that it be pulled?
That's correct.
All right. I don't think we have to vote on that, do we?
Well, let's just make it official then.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we modify the agenda, removing 13A from the agenda.
All right, so we have a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 13A by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so if you're here on item number 13, it is no longer on the agenda. So there's not going to be any comments or public or otherwise. So number 6 is public comment on any other agenda item. If you'd like to speak on anything else that is on the agenda, now's the time to do that. Do we have anybody to speak on anything other than item number 13?
The public hearing, sir, put out to the community, and you are required by law to allow us to speak whether the item was removed or not.
Well, I will err on the side of caution. Honestly, I think the item was removed because, and I don't know what D.R. Horton was thinking, but they obviously calculated that that would fall on dead ears tonight and they wouldn't get their amended proceeding. So instead of doing that, they decided to not comment or to not have it come before us. But if you'd like to comment, then I'll give you your 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. On December 9th of 2015, this commission gave a preliminary approval of Oak Lake development with a contingency. The note placed on the plat, agreed upon by the developer, said, if the roundabout at the entrance of Highway 44 is not constructed prior to the final plat of Phase 2, the proposed development will require exclusive northbound and southbound turn lanes as described in the traffic impact study. The developer wants to begin construction on the second and third filings, but the roundabout under construction is not completed, nor are north or southbound lanes built. Because you understood the inadequate infrastructure problems related to traffic in this area, you placed the note on the preliminary plat to ensure that the community was protected. Thank you. If the developer does not want to build north and southbound lanes to accommodate turns into and out of the subdivision, then they will have to wait to proceed with the construction of the second and third filings until the roundabout is operational in about 6 months. The developer is now proposing that they be allowed to continue building the second and third filings without completion of the roundabout or the construction of north and southbound turn lanes. After the continued construction, and only after the first occupancy permit is issued, in Phase 2, the applicant is proposing to place a traffic cop at the entrance of Oak Lake from 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. to direct traffic in and out of the subdivision until the roundabout is operational. A policeman will do nothing to mitigate traffic during the construction phase and only serve to facilitate those entering or exiting Oak Lake. Granting of this request would be a betrayal of all other citizens who travel this road daily. If you approve this preliminary plat major revision, the developer will be able to sell lots, obtain building permits, and begin constructing homes in the second and third filings. This will add to an already intolerable congested traffic on Highway 44. This request circumvents your original decision to mitigate the congestion during construction. This is the third time the developer has come back and asked you to change your initial approval. He's pulled it before off the agenda. Twice, you wisely said no. For the safety of citizens who travel this road, please say no again. Traffic conditions continue to be hazardous in this corridor. Please stick to your original position and put the safety of citizens first. Just say no. Thank you.
Teresa Robert.
It's under 3 minutes. For the third time in 6 months, D.R. Horton was asking you again to change the condition that this commission voted unanimously to place on Oak Lake's preliminary plat at the time of approval, a condition that D.R. Horton agreed to. She
we
needs to
get
put
the
this picture
overhead
up
to
here,
work?
please, for y'all while I'm reading. In 2015, the traffic impact study done for the parish stated that without the completion of the roundabout at the entrance of Oak Lake, the level of service was unacceptable. The commission action from that meeting read, moved by Mr. Matthew Pryor, seconded by Mr. Maury Bishop, and unanimously adopted, quote, to approve this preliminary subdivision plat contingent on roundabout be already constructed or a turn lane be required at the time the second phase final plat is proposed. Neither of these requirements have been done. Tonight, the developer was asking this commission to change this agreed upon requirement, which would have read, quote, if the roundabout is actively under construction, unquote. Changing the condition for D.R. Horton will compound citizens' daily nightmare of gridlock traffic caused by the inadequate infrastructure we travel on through this risky section of Highway 44 where the Conwell roundabout has begun. Changing this condition would be shirking your responsibility to protect the well-being and safety of Ascension Parish residents. Today, along 2 separate sections adjacent to Highway 44, it's not very clear, where prep work and drainage for the Conway roundabout is currently under construction, is half-inch steel sheet pilings that endanger our lives daily. I don't know who can take care of that, but that's very dangerous. We travel this length of 44 with a 2-foot drop-off from the edge of the asphalt and no shoulder. Both sides of this section are lined with construction cones that are often struck with additional metal barricade markers along Highway 44 north. Not to mention that we traverse this area bumper-to-bumper traffic every day, and the actual roundabout has not really even started. We all dread the many traffic delays to come. Additionally, the LOS at this intersection is unacceptable. Please don't allow, which it's not happening tonight, D.R. Horton to increase the volume of additional construction equipment, contractors, deliveries of materials, and workers to this dangerous mix until the roundabout is finished. The condition you attached to the preliminary plat was put in place for the health, safety, and welfare of citizens who have to travel this dangerous highway to and from work and home daily. To have removed this condition would have been putting a developer's wealth above citizens' safety needs. And as I said, there's some steel pilings. I don't know who should be responsible for that, but that's an accident waiting to happen and possibly a death. So thank you. I'm going to put this in the record, and I'd like to put these pictures in the record, please.
They will be submitted into the record.
Thank you so much.
And I have 4 others that have cards but did not wish to speak. Gary and Millie Blaylock, Charlotte Roussel, Peggy Martin, and Fran Tomplay.
Let that be noted in the record as well. We'll move on then to number 7 is general business. Number 8 is staff report, subdivision staff, Mr. Poche. Or subdivision status, I'm sorry, misspoke there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have in front of you is the monthly report on the current subdivision status with all changes marked as far as review status. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Mr. Chairman. I got a few questions. Number one, on Oak Grove Townhomes. I've gotten notice that we had, due to some of the recent rains that we had some flooding in Willow Lake subdivision. Now that Oak Grove is being built, it kind of goes back to the whole issue of the $100,000 in escrow and all those things. Has there been any progress made with that engineering fix design or anything like that?
No, I mean, that condition is placed on, upon approval of the final plat, then that money would be put in escrow, and they would have 2 years from that date to do the work.
They also had, due to some issues, they had some drainage issues in Brookstone, due to the construction. I'm sure staff is aware of that. Are they
Yes,
taking
they're currently
measures
under
to address
construction, they're
those
doing
things?
earthwork, they're moving dirt. They're starting to dig the ponds a couple of weeks ago. DPW's been out there several times, and there was one catch basin that was clogged up, and they're actively pursuing, monitoring it to try and make it as palatable as possible. Obviously, the construction can't be completed at one time, all at once, but we're making strides and really trying to accommodate the folks that live on the north side of that development.
Okay. And then last, I noticed that the CDs have not been approved for the villas at Rosewood, and we're hitting on over 5 months. Have they made any progress on there?
Yeah, I mean, they turned in for their third construction document review, and they're pretty close, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would imagine they would be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding subdivision status? All right. Number 9 is engineering staff report.
There's no report this evening.
Thank you. Number 10 is minutes from previous meetings. We need a motion to approve or deny the minutes and written decisions of the May 8th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
Motion
Motion by
approved.
Mr. Christie, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10B, a motion to approve or deny the minutes and written decisions of the May 29th, 2019 Special Planning Commission meeting.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 11 is the consent agenda. Item 11A is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for the Ascension Commerce Center LLC, Lot 28C, Industrial Drive, Prairieville, Louisiana. Item 11B is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Samuel Christie, STC Enterprises, Lot 4B1A, 38280 Tammy Road, Prairieville, Louisiana. 11C is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Samuel Christie, Lot 4A1A2, 3820 Tammy Road, Prairieville, Louisiana. Number 11D is an affidavit of mortgage declaration for Benjamin Brignac, Lot C2A1D, 45251 Hidden Middle Trail in Santamon. And item 11E is a final plat approval for Ascension Commerce Center, 5th filing, Phase 2, Quality Engineering Surveying. It's in Council District 3. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Can I make a question real quick?
You may.
I see for item number E, it's recommending, staff's recommending, I'm sorry, I see for item E, staff's recommending approval with some contingencies. If we accept it by consent agenda, can we put the contingencies by consent? Because the consent is just approving all of them up or down.
And
Right.
we're also not allowed to put contingencies on final plats now.
Oh, well, I guess there's that.
The final plat has comments on it. The final plat, as far as the final plat itself, has been addressed. There's a punch list items that the developer is addressing, and until we get final sign-off from drainage, streets, stormwater, I think there's one more, and inspections department, we will not get that final plat signed and recorded. So they have to complete all of those things before we would get anything. They're not contingencies, they're just notes as far as punch list items.
What has been our, from what I can understand, is they've needed to have all these other items addressed first before we can even give a final
Well,
plat
there's
approval.
a problem that I see in this is because it says staff recommends approval contingent upon satisfactory completion of all outstanding punch list items, which,
Poor
As we
choice
know-
of words.
huh?
Poor choice of words.
Well, very poor choice of words, because the council specifically forbid us from passing any, or approving any file on plat subject to any contingency is my recommendation of that. And so, and I don't think that was intended to address punch list items, but,
Correct.
this may be something that needs to be resubmitted to us, because I do think that creates a problem, and that, it was part of the discussion that was had before they passed it.
One possible solution would be to pull it off of the consent agenda and address it individually and specifically craft the motion to remove the word contingency from it. And
Do I have a
just-
motion to remove it from the
I'll
consent?
make a motion to
agenda?
remove item E from the consent agenda and move it to the public hearing portion of the agenda.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Chasson to remove item number 13E from the consent agenda and make it a public hearing. Second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Do I have a motion otherwise on the amended
So
consent
moved.
agenda? By Mr. Schexnayder.
Second.
Second by Mr. Chasson. Consent agenda is adopted. All right, item number
12.
12 is a public hearing to approve, well, do we have, I don't know if we can put that on the public hearing because it wasn't advertised as a public hearing. So it would
Oh,
have to
that's
come
true.
back if we don't, but we don't
You
have
don't
to
have to have
have
a
a
public
public
hearing
hearing
on
on it. So, but we do have to, well, the agenda's been amended to take that up, so we can take that up now as a 13, actually it'd
Well,
be
11,
11.1.
yes.
Yeah, point oh, to discuss that, and
Matt, should we make it official and just re-amend our motion?
why don't you, I think the motion, I think it was misstated wrong. I think the motion should have been a motion to amend 11E of the agenda, to remove 11E from the consent agenda, item 11E. And that is, so I'm going to re-ask the motion.
I'll make a motion to amend my previous motion to say what you just said as
Okay.
my motion.
And I'm assuming, Mr. Christie, you'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
And here, opposition, hearing none, motion passes. All right, do I have a motion to amend the agenda to discuss, or to add as a separate discussion, what was 11E, the major, the final plat approval of Ascension Commerce Center, fifth filing?
Motion.
By Mr.
Second.
Chasson, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition, hearing none, motion passes. Okay, now we're ready, I think, officially.
Okay. Then in that case, well, we're going to make a motion to remove the wording on this recommendation, eliminating anything concerning contingencies.
I would just say, vote to approve upon completion of the, moral approval as per staff, well,
I think that it should read, and I'll make a suggestion to this if you want to move off of this. Staff recommends approval
with signing.
of the final plat with the commission chair being able to sign the final plat only after the punch list items are completed.
Yes, that you should do it.
I'll second that.
I didn't make.
Well,
the
I will
motion.
make the motion stating as Mr. Chairman has stated.
All right,
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. And-
Sorry about that.
And, you know, yeah, we need to be careful about the wording so we don't get hung up. All right, moving on then to item 12A is a public hearing to approve or deny the following family partition, the Norman Frederick property, lots C2A1A, C2A1A2, C2A1A3, C2A1A4, and C2A1D1 by Earls and Associates. Mr. Falgood.
Yes, James Felger, representing Earls and Associates and the Brignac family on the following family partition, asking the commission for approval.
Staff.
All comments have been addressed, and it does meet the requirements of the code as far as family partitions.
All right, we'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, is anyone signed up to speak?
Yes. Jeff Gotro.
Mr. Gotro?
Good evening, council.
Good morning.
I'm a resident. This property right here is actually a former section of property from my
Can you rotate it? It's on the side.
from
Thank you.
my great-grandfathers. I'm kind of taken back a little bit right here today. This is a proposal for development, about a year and a half behind. This property's been under development for quite a while. This is the newest home that's built behind me. You can take a look at those poles. There's 4.5 foot of fill. And the three adjacent houses at the front of the property that were built in the past year are also as high. This watershed is affecting my property and my adjacent neighborhood. So I'm trying to figure out why now, so far behind, we're getting notice for development.
It's a notice for them to subdivide their lots.
I understand.
So whether or not they can develop, they've already done that.
Yeah,
This type of-
without notice.
Correct.
Right.
They were allowed to based on any type of zoning regulations and everything else.
Yes, sir.
This is just subdividing the property for ownership purposes. So
Right.
it is not considered a perennial development per se.
Well, actually, they are proposing to build 2 more homes on this property, which would make a total of 6 developed homes on this 21 acres. All this watershed from all of this property is falling toward me now because they built up so high. So my question is, how's it been unregulated?
The code specifically states that with houses in 1 acre subdivision, 1 acre lots, they don't have to necessarily mitigate it. It's mitigated through the disbursement over the 1 acre limit.
All right, this house behind me is sitting on 8.5 acres. So where does he fall into that regulation?
So 1 house per eight acres. So
Okay.
he's basically regulating his own watershed in his 8 acres.
Well, that's not the case. So this whole.
Then
this-
you would have to you would potentially have to seek, civil representation on this.
Right. So here's the problem. When we were dealing with our council earlier in this development, we were told that there were a hydrologist study done on this property, and it affected fall shed toward us. Another 1.5 years waiting on our council member who's now departing out of our District 6. Never did supply it for us. So we're kind of behind the curve here with this development.
The administration should be able to provide you, if they did have a hydrology survey done, they should be able to provide that for you.
I'm gonna put my money on the fact it wasn't done, and we were just told that it was done. So, I thank you for your time. I would remand this petition.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else, Ms. Stacy? All right, we'll close the public hearing on this. Any comments or questions by the commission?
What, to address the gentleman's concern, that specific property, do we know if they did have any type of hydrology survey done? Was it required per that building?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't looked into any of that. I can certainly look into it and see if anything was done.
If at all possible, could administration get his name and number and follow up with the gentleman?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think that was Mr. Bill Rowe that was putting on that study. He actually visited that property.
How was he able to build multiple houses on that one property without subdividing it first and getting addresses and
Addresses don't really have anything to do with it. It's in a rural zoning classification. You can build up to 2 units per acre. Typically, the bank, if you got to borrow money from a bank, then they like to have the lot subdivided. But if you have cash and you want to put a mobile home on a lot, an additional mobile home, or build a home and you don't require any financing, the code allows you to do that up to the maximum density per acre without subdividing.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this, to the gentleman, Louisiana, the civil code of Louisiana doesn't permit the owner of a property to overburden or eliminate drainage, the natural drainage of his neighbor. So that's state statutory law. So if that happens, and I don't know if it has or not, but if that happens, I think there is certainly a civil remedy for you.
My only concern is, I've been living on this property for 36 years, and I'm now finally getting notice for development. What happened to the last year and a half, 2 years?
Well, because he didn't need to notice anybody, as long as he was paying cash for it, he could have put up to, what was it, 2 houses per acre?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 houses per acre on that land, so that's,
7 structures on this property.
and it's 8 acres,
It's
right?
20
20 acres.
20-something. No,
20
he's talking about the
something.
residence right behind him was Benjamin Brignac, which is Ms. Donna Brignac's son, who has one residence on the 6-acre tract.
Yeah. So he
Just
didn't need
one
to, he
house.
didn't need to ask anybody's permission, he didn't need to get anybody's approval, he could just do it.
Yeah, there's one house on that 6-acre tract.
And he actually could have put 12 there,
Yeah.
so.
It kind of seems
Yeah, yeah.
a little off, but
Yeah.
that's what the law says, so.
Things I'm behind the curve here because the drainage issue was never,
Well, that's his obligation under state law, so like I said, I would look to maybe get an attorney involved in it and make sure that your rights are protected insofar as that, because he can't increase the flow off his land, and he can't block any drainage coming from your land onto his land, so, okay. All right, any other questions, comments, or,
What about all the staff review comments? I think there were 5 of them. Have all of those been addressed?
Yes, all of them have been addressed.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
a motion to approve by Mr. Schexnayder?
Second.
Second by Mr. Chasson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition, motion passes.
Thank
All
you.
right, item number 12B is the Jimmy Vize property, lots 4A1B1 and 4A1B2. Mr. Falgu from Earls and
Representing the Bizet
Associates.
family on the following family partition, asking the commission for approval.
Staff?
Yes, all comments have been addressed on the map, and the subdivision meets the family partition section of the subdivision regulation.
We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, is anyone signed up to speak on this? Then we will close the public hearing. Any questions, comments, and/or motion by the commission?
No, I'm going. Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr.
Second.
Schexnayder, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor? Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 13 has been removed.
Thank you.
And we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Falgu. Item number 14, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Meeting adjourned.
So moved.